Hey guys, tonight we begin with the elegant, disciplined, and often brutally unforgiving world of feudal Japan. A place of samurai honor, strict codes, and very sharp consequences. It's the land of cherry blossoms, beautiful poetry, and a daily routine that would absolutely break most of us by lunchtime. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The fan spins slowly in the darkness, stirring air that already carries the weight of centuries. Tonight, we step not just into another time, but into another dimension of human existence, a world where poetry and decapitation shared the same breath, where beauty was measured in the exact angle of a bow, and where your entire future was determined not by your dreams but by the circumstances of your birth, 6 generations before you ever drew your first startled gasp of air. Dim the lights. Let the shadows gather in the corners of your room like they're gathering intelligence. Turn on a fan if you have one, let that soft mechanical hum become the whisper of wind through rice paddies, the distant murmur of a world that runs on different rules. Settle into your chair, your couch, your corner of whatever space you call yours, and prepare to leave it behind. Because feudal Japan is waiting for you. And it has absolutely no interest in your comfort. The year is somewhere between 1185 and 1868, the precise moment matters less than the atmosphere, the architecture of existence that stretched across nearly 7 centuries. This is the era of samurai and shoguns, of cherry blossoms and severed heads, of tea ceremonies conducted with the same precision as military campaigns. This is a world so beautifully ordered, so elegantly structured, that every person knew exactly where they stood from the moment they could understand speech. And that knowledge? It was a cage. A beautiful, meticulously crafted, artistically painted cage. But a cage nonetheless. In feudal Japan, you don't wake up one morning and decide who you want to be. You don't scroll through options, weigh possibilities, consider your passions and pursue your dreams. You wake up, and the path is already beneath your feet, paved by your ancestors, bordered by your betters, and leading inexorably to the exact destination your bloodline has been marching towards since before your great-grandparents were gleams in anyone's eye. Your role in society isn't a suggestion. It's a life sentence. And unlike modern prison, there's no parole board, no chance of early release for good behavior. The only way out is the same way everyone eventually leaves, feet first, with appropriate ceremony, and hopefully without embarrassing your family too much in the process. Were you born into a samurai family? Congratulations! You're now personally responsible for approximately 10,000 rules of conduct, 2 swords that must never be dishonored, and the crushing weight of your ancestors' expectations. Every breath you take is a reflection on your lord, your clan, and everyone who came before you. Sneeze at the wrong moment during a formal audience, and your descendants will still be apologizing for it 200 years from now. Were you born a peasant? Marvelous. You'll be spending the next 4 decades ankle-deep in mud, and so will your children, and so will their children, in an unbroken chain of agricultural devotion that stretches back to the dawn of time and forward into an endless horizon of rice paddies. The soil doesn't care about your dreams. The soil demands your labor, and it will have it, one back-breaking day at a time, until the soil finally decides to keep you. There is no resume. There is no, start your own business. There is no lateral movement, no upward mobility, no reinvention. You are either samurai, peasant, artisan, or merchant, and once that label is affixed, it might as well be tattooed on your forehead. Trying to jump ranks isn't just frowned upon, it's punishable. Often with the kind of finality that makes a strong impression on anyone else who might be considering similar ambitions. You don't climb the ladder in feudal Japan. You bow to it. You bow so deeply, so sincerely, so completely, that your forehead touches the ground and you remember, with every fiber of your being, exactly where you belong in the grand cosmic order of things. And we haven't even gotten to the Ada. The Ada. The untouchables. The people who exist at the very bottom of the social hierarchy, so far down that even mentioning them in polite company feels like tracking mud across a freshly swept floor. These are the people who deal with death. Butchers who slaughter animals for food. Executioners who carry out the sentences of the courts. Leather workers who transform the hides of dead creatures into products the living cannot do without. Society needs them, desperately, fundamentally, cannot function without them, needs them. But society also pretends they don't exist. They're like ghosts with jobs. Important jobs. But ghosts. The Ada live in their own communities, marry among themselves, and exist in a parallel dimension to the rest of Japanese society. They can walk through the same streets, breathe the same air, see the same sun, but they are not seen in return. Or rather, they are seen and then immediately looked through, as if their bodies were made of slightly discolored air. A samurai might need a new sword sheath made from the finest leather. He'll send a servant to procure it, handle the transaction with all the necessary indirectness, and then accept the finished product without ever acknowledging the hands that crafted it. The leather worker's skill is valuable, the leather worker himself is invisible. This is the genius of the system, if genius is the right word for such a cruel arrangement. By creating a class of people so thoroughly despised, so completely other, the rest of society can enjoy the products of their labor without ever having to confront the moral implications. The meat appears on the table as if by magic. The leather goods materialize through some mysterious process that definitely doesn't involve anyone actually killing anything. The executions happen somewhere else, to someone else, performed by someone who doesn't really count as a someone anyway. It's elegant, in its way. It's also horrifying. But horror and elegance have always been comfortable bedfellows in feudal Japan, even within the respectable classes, the hierarchy gets complicated. Let's say you're a merchant. On the surface, this sounds decent, right? You've got money. You can afford nice clothes, good food, perhaps a comfortable home with actual walls and everything. In many societies throughout history, money has been the great equalizer, the ladder that allows clever people to climb above their birth. Not in feudal Japan. In feudal Japan, merchants sit near the bottom of the social pyramid. Below peasants. Below artisans. Barely above the Ada. And why? Because you make money without labor. You buy low and sell high. You profit from the work of others without contributing anything real yourself. You're essentially a parasite, in the eyes of the system, sucking value from the economy without producing anything of substance. Yes. You're literally too efficient to be respected. The logic, such as it is, goes like this: peasants produce rice, which is the foundation of everything. Artisans produce goods, which have tangible form and require skill to create. Samurai produce order and protection, which are essential for civilization to function. But merchants? Merchants just move things around. They take what others have made and charge more for it. They're essentially legalized thieves, in the moral calculus of the era. Never mind that trade is essential, that merchants connect producers with consumers, that the entire economy would grind to a halt without them. The system has decided that merchants are morally shady, and no amount of commercial success can wash away that stain. Meanwhile, peasants, the people the system supposedly respects more than merchants, are being taxed so mercilessly on their rice that they often face an impossible choice: pay what the tax collector demands and starve, or hold back enough to survive and commit treason. Because yes, hiding rice from the authorities is treason. Heads roll for treason. Often literally. So the peasant calculates, and calculates again, and prays that the numbers work out this year. The harvest was decent, the weather cooperated, the bandits stayed in someone else's territory, maybe, just maybe, there will be enough. Enough to pay the tax. Enough to feed the family. Enough to save a little for next year, when the calculations will start all over again. But if the numbers don't work? If the harvest fails, or the tax collector is particularly greedy, or some samurai's horse trampled a crucial section of the patty. Then the peasant faces a choice that isn't really a choice at all. Starvation, or treason. Slow death, or fast. The samurai, for all their honor and privilege, aren't exactly living carefree lives either. Yes, they carry swords. Yes, they wear beautiful silk robes. Yes, they have the right to cut down anyone who disrespects them, a right that was, in practice, exercised far less often than popular imagination suggests, because even samurai had to answer for their actions. But they also live in constant, soul-crushing fear of doing something wrong. Of disrespecting their lord. Of disrespecting their ancestors. Of disrespecting their tailor by wearing the wrong combination of colors. Of disrespecting their sword by sneezing while cleaning it. Every moment of a samurai's life is a performance. Every gesture, every word, every glance must be carefully calibrated to convey exactly the right degree of respect, deference, and martial readiness. A samurai who laughs too loudly is crude. A samurai who never laughs is cold. A samurai who expresses too much emotion is unstable. A samurai who shows no emotion is inhuman. There is no winning. There is only surviving until the next social test, and the next, and the next, until finally death provides the only release from the endless performance. And women? Women didn't even get to ask the question. Whatever your class, whatever your station, whatever your dreams or desires or secret hopes, none of it matters. Your freedom ends where your father's opinion begins. You will marry who you're told to marry. You will obey whom you must obey. You will bear children, manage households, and thank the heavens if you're allowed to learn enough poetry to properly express your complete lack of autonomy. A samurai's daughter might be married at 15 to a man she's never met, in a ceremony designed to cement an alliance between clans. Her feelings on the matter are not just irrelevant, they're almost incomprehensible. The idea that a woman's preferences might factor into such an important political calculation would strike her father as absurd, her mother as dangerous, and her future husband as vaguely insulting. A peasant's daughter will marry whomever her parents choose, usually someone from the same village or a neighboring one, in a transaction that involves more practical calculation than romance. Is he healthy? Can he work? Does his family have a good reputation? These are the relevant questions. Love, if it develops at all, is a fortunate accident, a bonus, not a goal. Even women of the merchant class, who might have slightly more freedom due to their family's commercial interests, are still bound by the same fundamental reality: their lives are not their own. They are daughters, then wives, then mothers, then widows, roles to be filled, not identities to be chosen. And if a woman steps outside these roles, if she loves the wrong person, or expresses an opinion too forcefully, or shows too much intelligence in a society that values female compliance above all else, the consequences can be swift and terrible. Exile. Disgrace. In extreme cases, death, either by official punishment or by the more private justice of a family desperate to protect its honor. The system is designed to absorb and neutralize any deviation. It has been doing so for centuries. It is very, very good at its job. So yes. You're born. You're assigned a costume and a script. You're shoved onto the stage of society, whether you want to perform or not. The audience, your family, your neighbors, your lord, your ancestors, possibly several gods who are apparently very invested in amateur theater, is watching. Judging. Waiting for you to forget your lines. And the performance never ends. There are no intermissions, no breaks, no moments when you can step backstage and just be yourself. Because in feudal Japan, there is no yourself apart from the performance. You are your role. Your role is you. The two cannot be separated, any more than a sword can be separated from its edge. It's elegant. It's poetic. And it's crushingly, suffocatingly, absolutely inescapable. And that's all before you've had breakfast. You might think, given all this social pressure and existential dread, that feudal Japan was all grit and grime, a world of peasants permanently coated in mud, samurai sweating under their armor, and everyone smelling vaguely of unwashed humanity. You would be wrong. Feudal Japan took cleanliness seriously. Painfully, obsessively, almost religiously seriously. It was practically a religion itself, this devotion to purity, this conviction that physical cleanliness reflected spiritual cleanliness and that a person who neglected one was inevitably neglecting the other. Which sounds lovely. Until you experience it in winter. Your day begins not in a cozy, tiled bathroom with heated floors and a towel warmer and artisanal soap that smells like lavender and self-care. Your day begins at a stone basin in the courtyard, filled with water that was fetched from the well or stream just moments ago, water that has spent the night getting intimately acquainted with temperatures just above freezing. There is no negotiation. There is no, maybe I'll wash later when it's warmer. There is only the basin, the water, and you are going to put your hands in that water, and then your face, and then your arms, shivering so violently that your ancestors might mistake you for someone experiencing demonic possession. The soap, if you're rich enough to have it, is made from ash or rice bran and smells exactly like what it is, something a monk invented specifically to test whether his students had any attachment left to physical comfort. It cleans, technically. It also reminds you, with every use, that comfort is not the point of existence. In rural areas, the local bath house, if you're lucky enough to have one, becomes the unlikely heart of community hygiene. Unlikely, because there is nothing private about it. The communal bath is heated by firewood, filled with villagers, and absolutely devoid of anything resembling personal space. You bathe next to your neighbors. You bathe next to your boss. You bathe next to your future in-laws, who are taking this opportunity to assess your physical fitness and general suitability for marriage. You bathe next to your landlord, who is naked and therefore temporarily stripped of the usual markers of authority, though everyone still behaves as if he's wearing full ceremonial robes. The etiquette is precise and unforgiving. You scrub yourself clean before entering the bath. Dirtying the communal water is not just rude, it's practically a spiritual violation. You sit in respectful silence, because the bathhouse is for cleansing, not for conversation. You soak, you contemplate the nature of existence, you try very hard not to make eye contact with anyone. Then you get out, dry off, and return to your life, temporarily clean and permanently marked by the experience of having been so thoroughly, publicly naked. But if you're not near a bathhouse, if you're a peasant in a remote village, or a traveler on the road, or simply someone whose circumstances don't include access to heated water and communal nudity, then you wash what you can, when you can. A stream, if there's one nearby. A bucket of water, if you can spare the time to fetch it. A cloth dampened with whatever moisture you can find, rubbed vigorously over the most essential parts. You clean your teeth with salt or a chewed twig, because dental hygiene matters even when you're eating nothing but rice and pickled vegetables. You keep your nails neat, because long nails are for the idle rich, and you are not idle and certainly not rich. You air your clothes regularly, because damp fabric breeds vermin, and vermin are harder to get rid of than almost anything except a bad reputation. You do all this not because it's trendy, not because you saw it on social media and thought it looked nice, but because being unclean is shameful. Spiritually shameful. Socially shameful. A visible sign that you are not living up to the basic obligations of human existence. And if you're a samurai, multiply the pressure by approximately 1,000. Your lord might inspect you at any time. Not announce an inspection, that would give you time to prepare, to hide your imperfections, to present a carefully curated version of yourself. No, your lord might simply appear, at any moment, in any place, and his eyes will sweep over you like the judgment of heaven itself. Dirty fingernails. Dishonor. A wrinkled robe. Disrespect. Bad breath. You didn't clean your teeth properly this morning, which suggests you didn't clean anything properly this morning, which suggests a general laxness of character that probably extends to your martial training and your loyalty and your very soul. Too much body odor. You bowed too close to the Lord, you filthy peasant," and now his nostrils are filled with your stench, and he will remember this moment every time your name is mentioned, and your career will stall and wither and die because you didn't wash thoroughly enough under your arms. Women, of course, face an even more impossible standard. Expected to smell like cherry blossoms and discipline, a combination that nature has never actually produced, they must navigate a world where any natural human odor is considered a personal failing. Perfumes help, but only if they're subtle. Only if they're appropriate for the season. Only if they don't suggest that you're trying too hard, which is itself a form of failure. Bathing is ritualized. Skin care is practiced with military precision. Hair is maintained in elaborate styles that take hours to arrange and must survive an entire day of work, movement, and the general wear and tear of existence. Women achieve all this while also managing households, raising children, and maintaining the serene expression of someone who has never once in her life broken a sweat. All so you can work a rice mortar and still look dignified doing it. All so you can present yourself to the world as someone who has mastered the impossible art of being simultaneously productive and pristine. So yes, feudal Japan was clean. Very, very clean. But it came at a price. Freezing water. Endless grooming. The constant, soul-shrinking awareness that someone, somewhere, was definitely judging your foot hygiene. Let's say you're born into the warrior class. The samurai. Sounds cool, right? Fancy swords. Silk robes. Poetic sword fights under cherry blossoms, with petals drifting down to carpet the ground where enemies have fallen. Now let's talk about the fine print. Being a samurai in feudal Japan isn't about swinging a katana and shouting about honor. It's about never, ever screwing up. Not even a little. Not even in ways that seem trivial. Because there are no trivial mistakes when your entire existence is built on a foundation of perfection. The entire framework of your life is governed by Bushido, the way of the warrior. A code of conduct so strict, so demanding, so absolutely unforgiving that even your ancestors are nervous. They're watching you from the afterlife, these ancestors, and they are not impressed. They have seen generations of samurai come and go, and they know exactly how rare it is for anyone to live up to the standard. You don't live for yourself. You live for your daimyo, your lord. His word is law. His moods are weather patterns that you must navigate without ever acknowledging that they exist. His expectations are the gravity that holds your world together, and if you fail to meet them, you don't just fall, you cease to exist, in any meaningful way. Your job is to serve with such complete, absolute, unquestioning loyalty that you would rather die horribly than disappoint him mildly. No pressure. Disobedience. Dishonor. Failure. Dishonor. Raising your voice inappropriately during a discussion of rice allocations. Dishonor. Looking at the wrong person sideways during a tea ceremony. You guessed it. Dishonor. And dishonor isn't something you just walk off. It's not a bad performance review or a disappointing grade. It's something you're expected to atone for, usually with your own intestines. That's not a metaphor. That's seppuku. The ritual suicide expected of disgraced samurai. You kneel, you pull out a short blade, and, let's stop there. You get the idea. It's not quick, it's not painless, and it's definitely not private. It's a ceremony, witnessed by others, conducted with the same precision as a tea ceremony but with significantly more blood. And this wasn't rare. It wasn't some extreme punishment reserved for the worst offenders. It was a respected, even celebrated way for a samurai to preserve his dignity in the face of failure. Mess up badly enough, and your lord might give you a short blade in a quiet room and say, with exquisite politeness, you know what to do. On top of all that, on top of the constant threat of ritual suicide and the crushing weight of ancestral expectation, samurai were expected to train constantly. Swordsmanship, archery, horseback riding, strategy, calligraphy, poetry. All while maintaining perfect posture and the expression of a man who has never known joy, only a deep, abiding sense of obligation. laughing too loud, unrefined, showing fear, weakness, getting emotional about anything, shameful. Your clothes must be precise, your sword must be spotless, your conduct must be so honorable that it makes other people uncomfortable just to be in your presence. And if you ever raise your sword in anger without cause, insult a superior, lose a duel, you don't just lose, you lose everything. Your honor, your position, your future, your life. Being a samurai isn't about glory. It's about discipline. It's about silence. It's about surviving each day without blinking wrong. So yes, you look good in armor. But you're one eyebrow twitch away from existential catastrophe. But you weren't born a samurai. No sword for you. No poetry. No chance of dramatic ritual disembowelment. That's the good news. The bad news? You're a peasant. Which means your entire existence is a combination of dirt, sweat, back pain, and government-mandated rice delivery. You wake up with the sun. Not because you're one with nature, not because you've achieved some kind of spiritual harmony with the rhythms of the earth. You wake up with the sun because the land tax doesn't pay itself. Also, your thatched hut has no doors and no windows, and someone's goat just walked across your sleeping mat, and the rooster has been screaming for 20 minutes, and there's really no point in pretending you can sleep through any of this. Breakfast, if you're lucky, is a bowl of rice porridge and a side of whatever was pickled last week and hasn't killed anyone yet. If you're unlucky, breakfast is pretending you're not hungry, washed down with a splash of river water and the vague hope that lunch will be better. Then it's off to the rice fields. The rice fields sound peaceful in travel documentaries. Lush green paddies, gentle water flowing, farmers working in harmony with nature. The reality is mud. Mud designed to break your soul, slowly, over the course of 12 hours. Mud that seeps into every crack and crevice, that weighs down your feet, that makes every step a negotiation with gravity. Mud that smells like decay and effort and the fundamental dampness of existence. You plant. You weed. You hope a bandit raid doesn't happen today, because bandits don't care that you spent all year growing those rice seedlings, and they definitely don't care that you'll starve if they steal your harvest. When the sun goes down, if you're lucky enough to make it that far without collapsing, you limp home. Only to discover that one of your oxen is missing, and the village headman would like to speak with you about your grain shortfall. Taxes. The word that haunts every peasant's dreams. You don't get paid in coins, you pay taxes with rice. Your family eats what's left. Which isn't much, especially if the harvest was bad. Especially if your lord's nephew accidentally rode his horse through your plot during a military drill. Especially if the weather decided this year would be a great time to try out drought, or flood, or that exciting new combination of both that leaves everyone confused and hungry. Want to complain about any of this? That's adorable. You can't complain. Talking back gets you whipped. Exiled. Promoted to corpse, if the person you're complaining to is having a bad day. The system doesn't care about your grievances. The system cares about rice. If you're really, really lucky, you might become a village elder one day. Which means people still don't listen to you, but now they ask for your advice right before ignoring it. Progress. And remember, you're legally not allowed to leave your village without permission. You are, in effect, a rice-based prisoner with seasonal ankle rot. Festivals. There are some. You get drunk on weak sake, dance in a circle, and try not to think about how planting season starts again in 4 days. It's not much, but it's something. It's the one time all year when you're allowed to forget, briefly, that your life is not your own. So yes. You are the foundation of the economy. The reason the samurai eat. The person everyone forgets exists. And no, you do not get a day off. Because feudal Japan believes in hard work, generational suffering, and keeping expectations extremely, extremely low. You're hungry. Of course you're hungry. You've been tilling, planting, sweating, and politely not dying since sunrise. Your body has burned through whatever meager fuel you managed to consume at dawn, and now it's demanding more with the insistent urgency of a starving animal. But in feudal Japan, meals aren't about indulgence. They're not about pleasure, variety, or even satisfaction. Meals are about survival. About simplicity. About getting enough nutrition into your body to keep it functioning for another day of labor, without choking on a fishbone in front of your in-laws and causing a scene that will be talked about for generations. If you're a peasant, your diet is rice. Rice for breakfast, rice for lunch, rice for dinner. If you're lucky, it's actual rice, the white, polished kind that everyone pretends is the only real rice. If you're not lucky, it's barley pretending to be rice, or millet, or some other grain that fills your stomach without convincing it that anything has actually been accomplished. You might get a turnip. Maybe two, if the harvest was good and your wife is feeling generous. Some pickled radish, if the gods are in a particularly good mood and decided to smile upon your village this year. The radish is pickled in salt and rice bran, fermented until it achieves a texture that can only be described as aggressively crunchy, and a flavor that makes you appreciate the subtle complexity of plain rice by comparison. Meat? Meat is for the daimyo. Meat is for that one chicken that looked at you funny and then mysteriously disappeared, though no one talks about it and everyone pretends the chicken just wandered off. Meat is for special occasions, which are defined as occasions when someone has died and we're all too busy grieving to wonder where that wild boar came from. Fish sometimes appears in your bowl, but it's dried, salted, and sharp enough to file your teeth down to nubs. It's preserved, because fresh fish spoils in hours and you don't have ice or refrigeration or any way to keep things from rotting except covering them in so much salt that nothing, not even decay, dares to approach. Soup is usually miso, if you can call hot salt water with 2 floating leaves soup. It's flavorful in the same way that seawater is hydrating, technically true, but missing the point in ways that matter deeply to your experience of eating it. If you're a samurai, you get better food. You get fish that might actually be fresh. You get vegetables that haven't been pickled into submission. You get rice that's actually rice, white and fluffy and everything rice is supposed to be. But you also eat last. After your lord. After his guests. After anyone he feels like impressing with his generosity and good taste. By the time the food reaches you, it's cold. The rice has congealed into a sticky mass. The soup has developed a skin on top. The fish, which might have been excellent an hour ago, now sits on your plate like an accusation. You eat in silence, because speaking during meals is rude. You eat quickly, because lingering over food suggests you care too much about physical pleasure. You eat everything, because leaving food on your plate is wasteful and wasteful is shameful. And throughout the meal, you maintain the expression of someone who is deeply honored to be eating cold leftovers while watching other people enjoy hot food. Because that's your role. That's your duty. That's the performance, and you will perform it perfectly or die trying. Everything is seasonal. Not because it's trendy, not because farm to table is a philosophy you've embraced, but because there's no refrigeration. No global supply chain. No way to get strawberries in winter except by not eating strawberries in winter, because strawberries in winter don't exist. So when it's winter, you eat what keeps. Pickled vegetables. Dried fish. Rice that has been stored since the harvest, slowly losing nutritional value with each passing month. If you're lucky, there might be some wild greens if someone was brave enough to venture out and gather them. If you're not lucky, winter is just nature's way of suggesting fasting as a spiritual practice. And heaven forbid you get food poisoning. Medical care in feudal Japan is optimistic. The local remedy for most ailments is lie down and think about your ancestors. You'll either get better, or you'll become one of them. Either way, the problem is solved. Food theft is a serious crime. Not, you'll get a slap on the wrist, serious. Not, community service and a fine, serious. Serious as in, public execution to demonstrate what happens to people who touch what doesn't belong to them, serious. Steal a bowl of rice, and you're not getting a warning. You're getting a public display. A demonstration. A reminder to everyone watching that the daimyo's daikin belongs to the daimyo, and anyone who forgets that will be reminded in the most memorable way possible. The logic is simple: in a world where food is scarce, where every grain of rice represents hours of labor and the difference between survival and starvation, theft isn't just theft. It's an attack on the entire system. It's a declaration that you don't accept your place, that you think you're entitled to what belongs to others, that you're willing to break the rules that keep society from collapsing into chaos. So the punishment is severe. Deliberately, theatrically severe. It's meant to be seen. Meant to be remembered. Meant to ensure that every time anyone in the village feels tempted by hunger, they remember what happened to the last person who acted on that feeling. And it works. Mostly. People still steal, because hunger is a powerful motivator and desperate people do desperate things. But they steal carefully. Quietly. In ways that might not be noticed, might not be traced back to them, might not result in that public demonstration. They steal and they pray. To the ancestors, to the gods, to whatever forces might be listening. They pray that no one noticed. That the missing rice will be blamed on rats or miscounting or the general chaos of existence. That they won't end up as next week's object lesson. Tea exists in feudal Japan. Of course it exists. Japan is famous for its tea ceremonies, its entire philosophy of tea as a spiritual practice. But tea isn't what you're imagining. The tea ceremony, shinoyu, is a complex performance. It's not about drinking tea. It's about posture, etiquette, and existential humility. It's about the precise way you enter the tea room, the exact angle at which you bow, the measured rhythm of your movements as you accept the bowl. It takes hours. Hours of kneeling on a tatami mat, your legs falling asleep, your back aching, your mind desperately trying to remember all the rules while also appearing serene and meditative. Hours of watching someone prepare tea with the kind of painstaking attention that would normally be reserved for brain surgery or the disarming of explosives. And at the end of all of it, you get a few sips of tea. Not a full cup. Not enough to quench your thirst. Just enough to taste, to appreciate, to demonstrate your gratitude for the experience. If you're a peasant, you don't do tea ceremony. You don't have time. You make tea by throwing some leaves in hot water and drinking it while you work. It's not ceremonial. It's not spiritual. It's just tea, and you drink it because you're thirsty and it's wet and that's enough. If you're a samurai, you do tea ceremony. Regularly. Whether you want to or not. Because tea ceremony is expected. It's part of the performance. It's another opportunity to demonstrate your refinement, your discipline, your mastery of the endless rules that govern existence. And if you make a mistake, bow too shallow, hold the bowl wrong, drink at the wrong moment, it's noticed. It's remembered. It becomes another data point in the ongoing assessment of your character, your worth, your fitness to exist in polite society. So you kneel. You wait. You accept the bowl with both hands, turn it exactly twice, drink in precisely 3 sips, and return it with the appropriate expression of humble gratitude. You do all this while your legs scream and your mind races and you desperately wish you could just have a normal cup of tea like a normal person. But you're not a normal person. You're a samurai. And samurai don't get to be normal. So yes. Meals in feudal Japan are sacred. Quiet. Respectful. Full of meaning and ritual and significance. But mostly, they're bland. Small. And they contain at least one crunchy mystery item that you chew carefully, hoping it's a vegetable and not a piece of grit that's going to crack your tooth. You eat what's put in front of you. You don't complain, because complaining is rude. You don't ask questions, because questions suggest doubt. You don't express preferences, because preferences are for children and the hopelessly undisciplined. You eat. You're grateful. You move on with your day. And if you're still hungry, which you probably are, you ignore it. Hunger is just another sensation, like cold or fatigue or the endless ache in your lower back from hours of bending over rice paddies. You acknowledge it, and then you set it aside, because acknowledging it is all you can do and all you're allowed to do. Tomorrow, there will be more rice. Probably. If the harvest holds. If the taxes don't increase. If the weather cooperates. If bandits don't come. If 1,000 other things go right instead of wrong. Tomorrow, there will be more rice. And if there isn't? Well. That's tomorrow's problem. Today, you have this bowl. This small, inadequate, life-sustaining bowl of rice. And you will be grateful for it, or you will be nothing at all. You've just finished your modest bowl of crunchy mystery soup. Someone says something absurd. Maybe your lord mumbles a bad haiku, 17 syllables of pure, unadulterated nonsense that doesn't scan, doesn't make sense, and definitely doesn't deserve to be called poetry. Maybe your village elder misquotes an ancient proverb, getting it exactly backward in a way that transforms wisdom into idiocy. Maybe your neighbor insists, with complete sincerity, that his cow can predict the weather, and you should all consult it before planning the harvest. For one reckless, foolish moment, you think about correcting them. Don't. In feudal Japan, your opinion is a liability. Free speech isn't just not a concept, it's a fast track to disgrace, exile, or sudden, career-ending decapitation. The idea that everyone has a right to express their thoughts, that speaking your mind is a virtue, that truth matters more than harmony, these are not just wrong, they're dangerous. They're the kind of wrong that gets people killed. The social hierarchy is rigid, and every word has weight. Speak above your class, and you're being impudent. Criticize someone above you, and you're insolent. Make a joke that doesn't land, and that's treason adjacent, close enough to the real thing that the distinction doesn't really matter when you're staring at the sharp end of a sword. Even within families, you tread carefully. A son doesn't interrupt his father, no matter how wrong the father is. A wife doesn't correct her husband, no matter how obvious the mistake. Children learn early that silence is safer than speech, that the safest response to any question is the one that confirms what the asker wants to hear. And no one, absolutely no one, questions the daimyo. Unless they've always wanted to explore the afterlife via sword tip. In which case, by all means, speak up. The daimyo's retainers will be happy to arrange your travel arrangements. Samurai are trained to speak with measured calm, even when furious. A sharp tongue is worse than a dull blade, it's unbecoming, it's dangerous, and it might force someone into the awkward position of having to kill you to restore their honor. Because honor is fragile. Easily damaged. Once lost, it can only be restored through dramatic, often bloody means. So if you insult someone, even accidentally, even in a way that seems trivial, you're not just being rude. You're creating a situation. A problem. A crisis that may require violence to resolve. This brings us to apologies. In feudal Japan, apologies are an art form. You don't just say, sorry, and move on. You bow. You grovel. You possibly write a poem about your shame, demonstrating your literary skills while also acknowledging the depth of your regret. You might even send a gift, a live bird, perhaps, or a decorative comb, while sincerely hoping the recipient doesn't decide to kill you anyway. The apology must match the offense. Too casual, and you're not taking it seriously. Too elaborate, and you're being insincere. Too late, and the damage is already done. Too early, and you haven't fully comprehended what you did wrong. And God's help you if your tone is off. A misplaced word can be interpreted as sarcasm, defiance, or spiritual rot. You can apologize for the wrong thing, to the wrong person, at the wrong time, in the wrong way, and suddenly you've made everything worse instead of better. Silence is almost always safer. If you don't speak, you can't misspeak. If you don't express an opinion, you can't express the wrong opinion. If you keep your thoughts to yourself, your thoughts remain yours, and no one can use them against you. Even humor is a tightrope walk. Laughing at the wrong thing could be seen as disrespect. Laughing with someone important might imply you think you're on their level. Laughing too loudly suggests a lack of refinement. Not laughing at all suggests you're cold, humorless, possibly plotting something. The safe approach is to smile, just slightly, just enough to show you appreciate the moment without committing to anything. To nod in acknowledgement without actually expressing amusement. To maintain the expression of someone who finds everything mildly interesting and nothing actually funny. But even smiling can be dangerous. Too broad a smile, and you're being familiar. Too narrow, and you're being dismissive. A smile at the wrong moment suggests you're not taking things seriously. A smile that lasts too long suggests you're mocking. A smile that doesn't reach your eyes suggests you're hiding something. There's no winning. There's only surviving, moment by moment, conversation by conversation, until you can escape to somewhere private where you can finally drop the performance and just be yourself. Except there is no yourself to be. Not really. The performance is all there is. The mask has been on so long that it's fused with your face. You don't know how to stop performing, because you've never had the chance to learn. So you nod. You smile. You pray your opinion never tries to escape your mouth. Because in feudal Japan, loose lips don't just sink ships. They sink social standing, reputations, and sometimes your entire bloodline. The fear of speaking out of turn isn't just personal, it's inherited. Your ancestors' mistakes echo through generations, shaping how you're perceived before you ever open your mouth. If your grandfather was known for inappropriate comments, you're assumed to have the same flaw. If your great-uncle once insulted a powerful family, you're watched for signs of similar disrespect. The past isn't past. It's present, always, in every interaction. You carry your ancestors with you, their honors and their shames, their triumphs and their failures. You are not an individual, you are a continuation, a chapter in a story that began long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. This means you're responsible for things you didn't do. For words you never spoke. For mistakes made by people you never met. The system doesn't care about fairness, it cares about continuity. About maintaining the patterns that have always existed, regardless of whether they make sense. So you learn silence. You learn to swallow your words before they reach your tongue. You learn to nod when you want to shake your head, to agree when you want to argue, to smile when you want to scream. You learn that the safest response to any question is the one that causes the least ripples. That harmony matters more than truth. That being right is less important than being appropriate. And eventually, you stop wanting to speak. The impulse fades. The desire to express yourself withers from lack of use. You become what the system wants you to be, a person who fits, who doesn't disrupt, who knows their place and stays in it. It's a kind of death. A slow, quiet death of the self. But it's also survival. And in feudal Japan, survival is victory. In feudal Japan, fashion isn't about self-expression. It's not about showing the world who you are, what you believe, or what you value. It's about making sure everyone knows exactly how far below them you are, just by looking at your sleeves. Your clothing doesn't reflect your personality. It reflects your position. Your purpose. Whether or not you're legally allowed to carry a sword without getting tackled by an indignant samurai who's offended by your presumption. Let's start at the top. Samurai wear layers of silk robes, sometimes armored, always dignified. Their outfits are carefully arranged to signal status and readiness. The colors are deep, blues, earthy browns, the occasional blood-red flourish. Elegant. Ominous. Almost always implying, I have killed a man for less than a fashion faux pas, and I would do it again without hesitation. And of course, the swords. A samurai's daisho, the paired long and short swords, is more than a weapon set. It's a walking badge of authority. Drawing one in public is a last resort, an act of such gravity that it can't be undone. But wearing them improperly? That's a first step toward being publicly corrected. With extreme sharpness. Peasants, on the other hand, wear cotton and humility. Brown, gray, and beige dominate the wardrobe. Not because peasants are minimalists with refined aesthetic sensibilities, but because dyed fabric costs money. Money you don't have. Money you'll never have. Money that exists in a different universe from the one you inhabit. Your outfit says, yes, I work in mud. No, I didn't choose this lifestyle. Yes, these are my only sandals. Please don't look at me. Merchants wear finer materials. They have money, after all. But they're still socially ranked below samurai, and even below peasants, in the official hierarchy, so they keep it muted. Rich, but not too rich. Silk, yes, but subdued silk. Colors that suggest wealth without shouting it. Fabrics that feel expensive without looking expensive. Wealthy merchant families become experts at looking just respectable enough. They learn the subtle art of not getting noticed by a bored samurai on patrol, because a bored samurai looking for entertainment might decide that a merchant dressed too well needs to be taught a lesson about knowing his place. So the merchant dresses well, but not too well. He walks with confidence, but not too much confidence. He speaks politely, but not so politely that it seems like mockery. He exists in the space between visibility and invisibility, hoping that everyone who matters will see him as useful rather than threatening. Artisans and craftsmen dress neatly but modestly. Their clothing is durable, practical, and most importantly, unobtrusive. Drawing attention to yourself is considered a personality defect, a sign that you're more interested in appearance than substance. So they wear what works, what lasts, what doesn't cause comment. And then there are women, who must strike a delicate balance between grace, obedience, and wearing 12 layers of folded symbolism. Women's fashion in feudal Japan is a minefield of meaning. Hairstyles are coded. This arrangement means married, that arrangement means unmarried, another arrangement means mourning, and wearing the wrong one is a social disaster of epic proportions. Kimono patterns are seasonal. Cherry blossoms in spring, autumn leaves in fall, and if you wear a summer pattern in winter, congratulations, you've just dishonored your entire household and possibly started a neighborhood whisper war that will last for months. Colors matter. Bright colors suggest youth and vitality. Muted colors suggest maturity and dignity. And if you wear a color meant for a different festival, a different age group, a different social status, you're not just making a fashion mistake, you're announcing to the world that you don't know your place. Layers matter. How many layers you wear, how they're arranged, which colors show at the collar and sleeves, all of it communicates something. Your family's wealth. Your attention to detail. Your respect for tradition. Your understanding of the endless, exhausting rules that govern female existence. And through all of this, you must move gracefully. Work efficiently. Maintain the serene expression of someone who has never once in her life been inconvenienced by wearing 12 pounds of silk while cooking, cleaning, and managing a household. The clothing isn't just clothing. It's a uniform. A statement. A cage made of fabric and expectation. And you will wear it perfectly, or you will face consequences that range from social exclusion to actual, literal death. In short, what you wear isn't just about clothing. It's about rank. Ritual. Surviving the daily judgment of both heaven and your mother-in-law. Every interaction begins with an assessment. A quick visual inventory that places you in the hierarchy, determines how you should be addressed, and establishes what you're allowed to do and say. Before you've spoken a single word, your clothing has already said everything important about who you are and where you belong. This means you can't just dress for comfort. You can't dress for the weather. You can't dress for your own preferences, because your preferences don't matter. You dress for your position, your role, your place in the endless hierarchy that governs everything. And if you get it wrong, if your collar is crooked, if your colors clash, if your fabric is too fine or too coarse for your station, you're not just making a mistake. You're revealing something. A lack of attention. A lack of respect. A lack of understanding of the basic rules that hold society together. In a world where everything is performance, your costume matters more than almost anything else. It's the first thing people see, the first data point in their assessment of you, the foundation on which all subsequent judgments are built. So you dress carefully. You check yourself in whatever reflective surface you can find. You ask your wife, your mother, your servant to verify that everything is correct. You step out into the world hoping that today, for once, your clothing won't be the thing that ruins everything. And it usually isn't. Because you've learned. You've adapted. You've internalized the rules so completely that you don't even think about them anymore. The cage has become invisible. But it's still there. It's always still there. You're imagining it now, aren't you? Moonlit walks beneath cherry blossoms, petals drifting down like pink snow. Whispered poetry under paper lanterns, the air thick with romance and the promise of something beautiful. Perhaps a dramatic kiss between a samurai and a forbidden princess, star-crossed lovers defying the rigid rules of their world for the sake of a passion too powerful to contain. Yeah. No. In feudal Japan, love is a side quest. And not one you're likely to complete. Let's be clear about what marriage actually is in this world. It's not about feelings. It's not about compatibility, shared interests, or that fluttery feeling in your chest when you see someone special. Marriage is about alliances. Status. Rice taxes. And most importantly, not embarrassing your ancestors. Your ancestors have been watching you since before you were born. They have opinions about everything you do. And nothing makes them more nervous than the prospect of you marrying someone inappropriate and dragging the family name through generations of shame. If you're a peasant, your marriage is arranged by your parents and possibly the village elder. Romantic compatibility isn't discussed, because it's not relevant. What's discussed is this person healthy? Can they work? Do they come from a family with a good reputation? Will this union strengthen our position in the village or create problems we'll be dealing with for decades? Sturdy legs and healthy teeth are considered more important than a pretty face or a charming personality. You can't plow a field with charm. You can't harvest rice with a pretty face. But sturdy legs? Those will feed your family for years. If you're from a samurai family, the stakes are even higher. Marriages aren't just family matters, they're political tools. Your partner is chosen to solidify a clan alliance, secure land rights, or pay off a grudge with a nice kimono and a formal apology that no one actually believes. The goal isn't happiness. The goal is stability. Ideally, a stability that doesn't collapse during harvest season, when everyone is already stressed and hungry and looking for someone to blame. Love letters exist. Of course they exist. People have always found ways to express what they feel, even in societies that try to crush individual expression. But these aren't the love letters you're imagining. No passionate declarations, no desperate pleas, no promises of eternal devotion scrawled in haste and hidden under pillows. Love letters in feudal Japan must be written in perfect calligraphy. Every stroke must be precise, every character formed exactly as the masters taught. The paper must be appropriate for the season, cherry blossom motifs in spring, autumn leaves in fall, and if you use the wrong paper, your beloved will know immediately that you don't understand the fundamental rules of courtship. The metaphors must be correct. You don't say, "I love you." You say, "The moon is beautiful tonight," and hope they understand that you're really saying something else. You reference classical poems that everyone knows, drawing on centuries of literary tradition to express feelings you're not allowed to express directly. And the letter must be delivered discreetly. By a maid who definitely knows too much. Who will definitely gossip about what she's seen. Who will definitely share every detail with her friends, who will share it with their friends, until your secret feelings are known to everyone except the person you're actually trying to reach. So you write your letter. You craft it carefully, obsessively, spending hours on each character. You choose the perfect paper, the perfect metaphor, the perfect level of indirectness that says everything while appearing to say nothing. You hand it to the maid, along with a generous tip and a desperate hope that she'll be discreet. And then you wait. And worry. And wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. Because you probably have. Women, of course, have even less say in these matters. A samurai's daughter may be married off at 15, sometimes younger, to a man she's never met, in a ceremony she didn't choose, for reasons she may never fully understand. Before the marriage, she's educated. Not in the way you might think. She learns calligraphy, because a well-written letter reflects well on her family. She learns etiquette, because every bow, every gesture, every word must be perfect. She learns needlework, because a wife who can't sew is a wife who can't contribute to the household. And she learns the fine art of never expressing disappointment out loud. This last skill is the most important. Because there will be disappointment. There will be moments when she hates her husband, misses her family, longs for the life she might have had if she'd been born someone else. But she will never show it. Never say it. Never let anyone see that she's anything other than perfectly, completely satisfied with her lot in life. Her job, once married, is clear: bear sons, serve tea, manage the household. And absolutely, under no circumstances, fall in love with the flute teacher. The flute teacher is not a love interest. The flute teacher is a tutor, hired to improve her musical skills so she can better entertain her husband's guests. He is not romantic. He is not exciting. He is not someone she should be thinking about when she's supposed to be sleeping. But of course, people are people. Feelings happen. Attractions develop. And when they do, the consequences can be catastrophic. Actual romantic love, the kind with stolen glances, secret meetings, and passionate declarations, is the domain of poets. Theater plays. Tragic ghost stories that everyone pretends are fiction but everyone knows are based on real events. If you want to experience love in feudal Japan, you'll need to watch a no-drama. You'll see two doomed lovers on stage, beautifully costumed, moving in slow, stylized gestures that suggest passion without actually showing it. They'll exchange poetic vows, promise to meet again, and then, spoiler alert, they'll both die tragically and turn into mist. Because that's what happens to people who love outside the rules. They die. They become mist. They haunt the living as a warning to anyone else who might be tempted to follow their example. If you try to step outside your assigned relationship structure, if you love the wrong person, in the wrong way, at the wrong time, the consequences are swift and terrible. Adultery can lead to exile, disgrace, death by sword-related disapproval. The punishment might be carried out by your spouse, or your lord, or your in-laws. Whoever gets there first, and whoever feels most strongly about restoring the family honor. Even for samurai, taking a concubine was common. But that didn't make things easier. It just added more people to the household. More relationships to manage. More people to disappoint silently, in the privacy of your own increasingly complicated family structure. So yes. People fell in love. Secretly. Painfully. Occasionally with the wrong person. Always at the worst possible time. Because in feudal Japan, love wasn't forbidden. It was just dangerously inconvenient. Let's walk through a typical arranged marriage, just so you understand how the system works. It begins with negotiations. Two families, represented by their heads, usually fathers, sometimes uncles, or grandfathers if the fathers are unavailable, discuss the potential union. They talk about land, about alliances, about the political advantages of joining their houses. They do not talk about whether the young people involved might actually like each other. If the families agree, there's a formal exchange of gifts. The groom's family sends presents to the bride's family, silk, perhaps, or sake, or something else that demonstrates their wealth and seriousness. The bride's family accepts, signaling their willingness to proceed. Then there's the ceremony. It's elaborate, ritualized, full of meaning that only the priests and the oldest family members fully understand. The bride and groom go through the motions, saying words written for them, making promises they didn't choose, committing to a future they never envisioned. After the ceremony, there's a feast. Everyone gets drunk. Old grudges are briefly forgotten, or at least not mentioned. The newlyweds sit together, barely looking at each other, both wondering what happens next. What happens next is, they go home together. To a house that may be new to one or both of them. To a life that has been arranged by others. To a future that was decided before they were born. And they make the best of it. Because that's what people do. They adapt. They find ways to care for each other, even if the care wasn't there at the beginning. They build something together, even if they didn't choose to build it. Sometimes, love grows. Slowly, quietly, in the spaces between duty and routine. A shared meal. A moment of kindness. A child born, a child raised, a life built together despite the circumstances of its beginning. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the best you get is polite tolerance. Mutual respect. The quiet endurance of two people who share a roof and little else. And sometimes it's worse. Sometimes the marriage is a battlefield, a source of constant tension and quiet misery. But you endure that too, because there's no alternative. No divorce. No escape. No second chance. You made your choice, or rather, it was made for you, and now you live with it. Forever. For samurai of sufficient rank, marriage wasn't the only option. Concubines were common, women who lived with the family, bore children, and occupied a status somewhere between wife and servant. This sounds, to modern ears, like a recipe for drama. And it was. But it was also structured, ritualized, and governed by rules that attempted to minimize the chaos. A concubine wasn't a mistress in the Western sense. She wasn't a secret. She wasn't someone the wife didn't know about. She was part of the household, with defined responsibilities and a recognized position. Her children had status, though less than the wife's children. Her role was understood, accepted, and incorporated into the family structure. This didn't mean everyone was happy about it. Wives resented concubines. Concubines resented wives. Children from different mothers competed for favor and inheritance. The potential for conflict was enormous. But the system managed it. Through rules, through ritual, through the same rigid hierarchy that governed everything else. Everyone knew their place, even in the complicated geometry of an extended household. And the concubines? They had no more choice than the wives. They were chosen by the family, often for political or economic reasons. They entered the household as young women, left their own families behind, and spent their lives in service to a man they might not have chosen and a wife who would never truly accept them. They too made the best of it. Found what happiness they could. Raised their children. Maintained their position. Survived. Because survival is what feudal Japan is really about. Not love. Not happiness. Not fulfillment. Survival. Children born into these arranged families inherit the same system. Their futures are planned before they can talk. Their marriages are negotiated before they reach puberty. Their lives follow paths laid out by ancestors they never met. A samurai's son knows from childhood that he will marry someone chosen for him. He may dream of love, of passion, of choosing his own partner, but those dreams are as insubstantial as morning mist. Reality will assert itself, as it always does, and he will marry whomever his father selects. A samurai's daughter knows the same. She may hope for a kind husband, a comfortable home, children she can love. But she also knows that kindness is not guaranteed, comfort is not promised, and love may never enter the equation at all. Peasant children have slightly more flexibility, simply because their families have less to gain or lose through strategic marriages. A peasant might marry someone from a neighboring village, someone they've actually seen, maybe even someone they've spoken to a few times. But the choice is still not theirs. The decision still belongs to parents who have their own priorities. And everyone, absolutely everyone, knows that the alternative to arranged marriage is not romantic freedom. The alternative is no marriage at all. Remaining single, in feudal Japan, is not a valid life choice. It's a failure. A disgrace. A sign that something is wrong with you. So you marry. You produce children. You continue the family line. You do your part in the endless chain of obligation that stretches from the ancestors to the unborn. And if you're lucky, if the gods smile on you, you might find something like love along the way. But you don't count on it. You don't expect it. You certainly don't demand it. You accept what you're given and make the best of it. Because that's what honor requires. That's what duty demands. That's what it means to be human in feudal Japan. In feudal Japan, death isn't a distant concept. It's not something that happens to other people, in other places, at other times. Death is your neighbor. Your coworker. Your roommate who never pays rent but is always around, lurking in the corners, waiting for the right moment to introduce himself. You don't plan for retirement in this world. You don't save for old age, dream of golden years, imagine yourself surrounded by grandchildren in some peaceful sunset of existence. You plan for your exit. You prepare for death, because death is coming, and it's not polite enough to wait until you're ready. Death isn't a tragedy here. It's not a surprise, not an interruption, not an injustice. It's part of the script. Part of the natural order. As inevitable as the changing seasons, as certain as the rice harvest, as expected as the taxes you'll pay until your dying breath. The question isn't whether you'll die. The question is how. With honor or without. With dignity or in disgrace. In a way that pleases your ancestors or in a way that makes them wish they'd never had descendants at all. Let's start with the samurai. These honorable warriors walk around with 2 swords and a personal death plan. It's not morbid, it's practical. It's preparedness. It's the logical extension of a life lived on the edge of violence. If they lose a battle, seppuku. If they insult their honor, seppuku. If they spill sake on the daimyo's robe, seppuku. With dramatic background music, ideally provided by someone who understands the importance of a good soundtrack for ritual suicide. And it's not private. It's not a quiet moment alone with a blade in your thoughts. It's public. Ceremonial. Performed with the same precision as a tea ceremony, but with significantly more internal bleeding. Witnesses watch. Officials record. Poems are composed. The whole thing is a production, a performance, a final act designed to demonstrate that even in death, the samurai knows his place and plays his role, but don't think peasants are getting a longer life just because they don't carry swords. Death doesn't discriminate by class. It just uses different methods. If you're a farmer and the rice harvest fails, you're starving. Not dieting. Not eating a little less. Starving. Your body consumes itself, slowly, painfully, over weeks or months. You watch your children grow thin, then thinner, then still. You watch them die, one by one, and there's nothing you can do except dig their graves and hope you join them soon. If your village can't meet its tax quota, your head might be used to make a very stern point. The tax collector doesn't care about weather, or bandits, or crop disease. The tax collector cares about rice. If the rice isn't there, someone must pay. And the payment is often collected in body parts. Drought. Plague. Bandit raid. Pick your flavor of sudden demise. There are so many options, so many ways to leave this world, that you could spend all day listing them and still not cover everything. And good luck fighting any of it when your most advanced medicine is warm tea and a strong belief in herbal optimism. The local healer means well, but means well doesn't cure dysentery. Strong belief doesn't stop gangrene. You get sick, you get worse, and then you get dead. It's a simple progression, repeated millions of times across centuries of Japanese history. Speaking of bandits, they're real. They're everywhere. And they don't care that you spent all year growing those daikon radishes. The roads outside towns are so dangerous that people just don't travel unless absolutely necessary. The phrase, "maybe we'll visit your cousin next year," actually means, I enjoy being alive and would like to continue that state for as long as possible. Bandits don't discriminate. They'll rob samurai if they think they can get away with it. They'll rob peasants because peasants are easy targets. They'll rob merchants because merchants carry valuable goods. They're equal opportunity predators, and they're always watching, always waiting for someone to make the mistake of traveling alone or unguarded. If you must travel, you travel in groups. You carry weapons, even if you're not trained to use them. You move quickly, quietly, hopefully. You pray to every god you can think of. That today won't be the day the bandits decide you look like easy prey. Sometimes the prayers work. Sometimes they don't. And when they don't, the bandits don't just take your goods. They take your life, because dead victims can't identify you to the authorities. Dead victims can't seek revenge. Dead victims are just another body in a ditch, another statistic in the endless toll of violence that keeps the roads empty and the villages nervous. If you're a woman, childbirth is a dice roll. And the dice are loaded. Complications happen. Often. Fatally. The midwives are skilled, they've been doing this their whole lives, learning from mothers and grandmothers and the accumulated wisdom of generations. But skill only goes so far when the baby is breech, when the bleeding won't stop, when something goes wrong in ways that no one understands and no one can fix. The medical options are limited. Mostly, they consist of pray harder and boil another towel. The midwife does what she can. The family does what they can. The woman in labor does what she can, which is mostly just endure and hope that her body knows what to do. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the baby comes, healthy and screaming, and the mother survives, exhausted but alive. Sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes the baby doesn't. Sometimes neither does. And when the worst happens, there's no time for grief. There's work to do. Other children to care for. A household to run. A husband who needs feeding. The dead are buried, mourn briefly, and then life continues because it must, because stopping isn't an option, because the rice won't plant itself and the taxes won't wait for grief to pass. If your husband dies in disgrace, you might be expected to follow him. Not emotionally, grief is optional. Literally. With a dagger. A samurai's wife, upon her husband's disgrace and death, faces an impossible choice. She can live, carrying the shame of his failure, watching her children struggle under the weight of a dishonored name. Or she can die, joining him in the afterlife, demonstrating her loyalty and restoring some measure of honor to the family. The system doesn't require this. It doesn't mandate that widows commit suicide. But it suggests. It implies. It makes clear that living is a choice, and that choosing to live might be seen as choosing to accept shame rather than embrace honor. Some women choose death. They dress in white, the color of mourning. They write a final poem, expressing their feelings in the elegant, indirect language that all important communications require. They take up the dagger, and they join their husbands in whatever comes next. Other women choose life. They raise their children. They manage their households. They endure the whispers, the sideways glances, the endless reminders that they could have chosen differently. They live with the weight of a decision that no one should have to make. Both choices are valid. Both choices are respected. Both choices are agonizing. And no one talks about it afterward. The women who chose life don't discuss their decision. The women who chose death can't. The whole thing is wrapped in silence, in the same silence that covers so much of feudal Japanese life. And let's not forget nature itself. Japan is a disaster artist. Earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, famines, the islands have them all, in abundance, on a regular schedule that never quite becomes predictable. Earthquakes strike without warning. The ground shakes, buildings collapse, fires start. If you survive the shaking, you still have to worry about the fires, because everything is made of wood, including your bad decisions. Floods come when the rains are too heavy, when the rivers swell, when the mountains can't hold any more water. Your village becomes a muddy soup bowl. Your crops drown. Your animals wander off. Your landlord still wants taxes, of course, now with interest, because disaster is apparently not an acceptable excuse for non-payment. Tsunamis follow earthquakes, sometimes. Walls of water that sweep inland, carrying everything before them. Houses, people, entire villages, gone in moments, washed out to sea, never seen again. Volcanoes occasionally join the party. Japan is part of the Ring of Fire, which sounds exciting and is actually terrifying. Eruptions can bury entire regions in ash. Lava flows can reshape the landscape. The realization that your shrine is now a rock garden comes suddenly and without consolation. And through all of this, there's no FEMA. No national relief effort. No government assistance beyond maybe a tax deferment if you're lucky and the officials are feeling generous. If your house collapses, you rebuild it. With your own hands. Using whatever materials you can scavenge. If your food spoils, you go hungry. You go hungry until the next harvest, assuming there is a next harvest. If your lord's estate is also affected, well, you still owe taxes. Disaster is not an excuse. Nature's cruelty doesn't cancel your obligations. But perhaps the darkest part of all this is that you're expected to accept it calmly. Wailing in fear. Frightened. Undignified. Fighting fate. Pointless. A real hero bows before death, composes a poem, and meets their end like it's just another awkward dinner with your clan. This acceptance isn't resignation. It's not giving up. It's a philosophical stance, a spiritual practice, a way of understanding your place in the universe. Death is natural. Death is inevitable. Death is just another step in the journey that began with your ancestors and will continue with your descendants. So you prepare. You live each day as if it might be your last, because it might be. You maintain your relationships, fulfill your obligations, do your duty, not because you'll be rewarded, but because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what honor requires. That's what it means to be human. And when death comes, whenever it comes, however it comes, you meet it with dignity. With composure. With the quiet acceptance of someone who always knew this moment would arrive. You bow. You compose your final poem, if you have time and the presence of mind. You think of your ancestors, waiting to welcome you. You think of your descendants, who will carry your memory into the future. And then you go. As everyone does. As everyone always has. Because in feudal Japan, mortality is part of the decor. It's woven into the fabric of existence. It's not something to be feared or fought or denied. It's just something to be accepted. Gracefully. Quietly. With honor. In modern life, you're told to follow your dreams. Be your own person. Live your truth. Express yourself. Find yourself. Create yourself. The list of instructions for being a modern individual is endless and exhausting, but it all comes back to the same core idea: you matter. Your choices matter. Your life is yours to live. In feudal Japan, your truth is whatever your clan tells you it is. Individualism isn't a virtue here. It's not even a concept. It's a red flag, a warning sign, an indication that something has gone terribly wrong in your understanding of how the world works. The idea that you might have your own truth, separate from the truth of your family and your ancestors and your lord, that's not just wrong. It's dangerous. It's the kind of wrong that gets people killed. You exist not as a lone star of destiny, burning bright in the darkness of existence. You exist as a very small branch on a very important family tree. And your job, your only job, your reason for being, is to keep that tree from catching fire due to any embarrassing behavior on your part. Expressing opinions. Fire risk. Falling in love with a merchant's daughter. Major fire risk. Doing literally anything that hasn't been approved by at least 3 generations of ancestors. You're playing with matches in a forest made of dynastic ambition. Your clan is everything. Your identity, your reputation, your future, all of it flows through your family name. You are part of a web of obligations, honors, and expectations so dense that it might as well be a spiritual spreadsheet, carefully maintained by generations of accountants who specialized in keeping track of who owes what to whom. Every action you take has consequences that ripple through this web. Every word you speak affects not just you, but everyone connected to you. Every decision you make must be weighed against the interests of the clan, the opinions of your elders, the precedents set by your ancestors. Even the samurai, proud, honorable, sword-carrying warriors, don't fight for themselves. They fight for their daimyo, their household, their ancestors. And if they die, ideally it's in a way that makes everyone above them look good. Because dying with honor is one thing. That's expected. That's the baseline. But dying in a way that slightly embarrasses your clan, that's the stuff of generational nightmares. That's the kind of mistake that gets mentioned in family histories for centuries, always with a sigh and a shake of the head. Your actions reflect on your father. Your father's actions reflect on your grandfather. Your grandfather's actions may still be affecting how your cousin is treated in the next province over. It's not guilt by association. It's life by association. You are not an individual with separate accounts. You are part of a collective, and the collective's credit score determines everything about your existence. Want to open a noodle shop because you love cooking? That's adorable. Unfortunately, your clan raises horses. So you'll be brushing hooves until further notice. The fact that you have no interest in horses, no skill with horses, and a deep, abiding fear of being kicked in the head by a horse, none of that matters. The clan raises horses. You are part of the clan. Therefore, you raise horses. Express interest in painting? Excellent. You'll be decorating the temple your family sponsors. With strict guidelines. In total silence. Using techniques that haven't changed in 400 years. Your personal artistic vision is not relevant. What's relevant is that the temple gets decorated in the traditional manner, by a member of the sponsoring family, demonstrating that the family understands its obligations and takes them seriously. Your dreams. Your passions. Your unique gifts and talents. The clan doesn't care. The clan cares about continuity. About maintaining the patterns that have always existed. About ensuring that the next generation looks enough like the current generation that no one gets confused about who's supposed to do what. You are a cog. A very small cog in a very large machine. And the machine doesn't care if you'd rather be a different cog, or no cog at all, or something that isn't a cog because you never wanted to be a cog in the first place. The machine just keeps running. And you keep turning. Until you wear out and are replaced by the next cog. And don't even think about scandal. One poorly timed affair. One drunken incident. One public poem with too much sass. The shame hits everyone, rippling outward through the family web like waves from a dropped stone. Your siblings. Shunned. Can't find marriage partners, because who wants to connect their family to a scandal? Your mother. Mortified. She raised you, taught you, tried to instill the values that would keep you from doing exactly this. Your failure is her failure, publicly displayed for everyone to see. Your father. Disgraced. His judgment is questioned. How could he have raised such a child? What does it say about him that his offspring turned out this way? Your great-uncle. He might have to disembowel himself. Just to restore the family's good standing. Because your mistake is so profound, so damaging, that the only way to recover is for someone to die dramatically and hope that everyone is so impressed by the gesture that they forget what started it all. You are not a person. You are a representative. A chess piece. A liability with legs. And if you forget that, if you act like an individual, with individual desires and individual needs and individual dreams, the consequences won't just fall on you. They'll fall on everyone connected to you. Everyone who shares your name. Everyone who had the misfortune of being born into your family, but hey. If you play your role well. If you bow at the right times, marry who you're told, produce the required children, and never cause any scandal that might require dramatic disembowelment from distant relatives. If you do all that, your clan might just speak your name with something resembling pride. And that's the feudal Japanese version of a personal achievement badge. Pride of the clan isn't individual recognition. It's not a trophy with your name on it. It's not a moment in the spotlight where everyone acknowledges your unique contributions. It's a quiet nod from your elders. A mention in family records. A sense that you've done what was expected, fulfilled your obligations, and not made anything worse for the people who come after you. That's the goal. That's the aspiration. That's what you work your entire life to achieve. Not happiness. Not fulfillment. Not self-actualization. Just, not making things worse. Just maintaining. Just keeping the machine running smoothly for one more generation. And if you can manage that, if you can live your entire life without causing a scandal, without embarrassing the family, without forcing anyone to commit ritual suicide to restore the clan's honor, then you've succeeded. You've done your part. You've kept the branch from breaking. You've passed the tree along to the next generation, intact and undamaged. It's not much. Compared to modern ideas of success, it's almost nothing. But in feudal Japan, it's everything.